Daniel, can you please introduce yourself and tell us about your nonprofit origin story?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. My name is Daniel Sagona. I work in video production and creative strategy for nonprofits. And my origin story is probably similar to a lot of people's in that being a young person, young upstart creative, I didn't really know exactly where I wanted to land. I started off working like in the film industry proper near New Orleans, where I'm from, and I worked on Marvel movies. I worked on Tom Hanks movies. I was a crew guy. Did that for a few years, and eventually just was unsatisfied with it. Just didn't feel like I was having a big impact theme at that point. Quit that and taught myself how to shoot, taught myself how to edit video. Didn't really know what to do with that skill though. I just knew I wanted to tell stories. I knew I wanted to be a filmmaker. I just didn't know how that was going to manifest.
Okay.
Eventually ended up working freelance for several years, got a job running a video production company, but it was mainly like industrial. It was mainly like construction and e-commerce build outs and things like that. But to what we were talking about earlier, this business had a nonprofit that was attached to it that worked with kids with special needs. And they were like, hey, whenever you have free time, like whenever nothing, we don't have any like big projects going on, just go shoot stuff for them because they're great and like just help them out. Okay, cool. Fast forward 2 years later, I had made 65 short form documentaries for this nonprofit. Learned a ton of things about the special needs community and the needs there. We talked to parents, we talked to caregivers, we talked to medical professionals. We told the stories in all kinds of different ways. It wasn't always just like smiling faces and riding bikes. It was like one time we went down the bayou and filmed this kid who learned how to crawfish and hunt gators. And it became the content, the brand started to grow. I started learning how to build a brand.
Yeah.
And through that, I was like, wow, I was like, this is my passion. This is really what I want to be doing. And it got to the point where I was like, it's resonating. I'm really good at it. We're growing financially.
Yeah.
So I was like, I just want to do this. So I went to my boss at the time and I was like, I just want to do that. And they were like, that's not what you were hired for. So I was like, okay, I got to leave and go do my own thing. I still have a great relationship with the folks over there, but I was like, I got to go build my own thing. Left in like March 21 ish, started my own production company and just been running with it ever since.
I love that. I love that. I love how sometimes I think mine was fairly similar, where it was like the exposure to nonprofit just blew me away because I didn't have, we've had a couple interviews where people are like, oh, there's this family generations of people who have done service work. And that's super cool. I didn't come from that. So it's almost like what did I say? It's almost like the glass shattering. Once you see it, you
Right.
can't unsee it.
Yes.
You can't unsee it. And I think that's what's so cool about what you're doing with the storytelling and the video and everything is you are able to create an awareness through video. It's very cool.
I think it's you see it, but really you feel it. I know
Yeah.
for me, it was a selfish act. It was like, I feel great whenever I can make these folks feel great, when I can make them feel seen, whenever they watch a video and they go, oh my gosh, that's me. That's my story up there. And that's really important to me too. And we'll get into that. But for me, it was like that feeling was like addictive. I was like, I was chasing that good feeling.
And then maybe this kind of naturally goes into favorite thing about working in the nonprofit space because you already just started. So let's just roll into that.
Yeah, definitely. I would say, you know what? That's actually not my favorite thing.
Okay.
That's my second favorite thing.
Second favorite thing.
I would say my favorite thing is the people that you get to work with, organization side, the people who are receiving the services. I love working with passionate people. I've always like I'm not someone who likes to work with people. I don't tend to do well working with people who are like just in it for the money or people who are just motivated solely by some kind of vanity metric. I was never good at that. My music video career didn't go very far because of this. Whenever you work in nonprofit, like everyone there is there because they want to do an impact. They're there because they want to see a change. So that really feeds me. That's really inspirational for me. Makes me want to work that much harder. Makes me want to make sure I deliver. And then when you talk to the people receiving the services, you're just like, man, we got to make this great, because it has to live up to them and their story. We have to honor them. So for me, it's really the people that you get to meet. Like my favorite people I've all met who work in nonprofit.
It just attracts a cool
Yeah.
bunch. Like,
Yeah, it
honestly, yeah,
does.
it's such an amazing space. Okay. And challenges of the work. So as you've serviced within organizations and then in your work in consulting and creating, what are some of the challenges, I guess, you see across the board?
There are many. I would say the biggest one is mindset. I would
Yeah.
say the biggest challenge the hurdle I have to jump is mindset. I think for a long time, nonprofits and charities have had this sort of, we got to, and there's some truth to this, but we got to keep our overhead as low as possible. We got to save every penny, put it all into the programming, and not spend any money to grow, right? And simultaneously, in our storytelling, in our content, we cannot step one toe outside of the established box. We know from the for-profit world, we know from the way that works, that is a recipe for stagnation and ultimately plateau and eventually decline. So we know this. So we have to, a lot of what I do is giving permission to those folks. Yes, of course, your programming is the number one priority. I never want you to cut the head off of your programming to fund marketing. Like, that should not be the thing. But let's get creative in the way that we fund that marketing, because if we do it right and we're willing to take some chances and we're willing to take a foot outside of the box and take people's heads somewhere else, then you'll have way more money for that programming 6 months from now,
Absolutely.
which is
Yeah.
ultimately my goal.
Yeah. It's super true. I mean, I'm still constantly trying to wrap my head around, as a marketer in the nonprofit space, still wrapping my head around the fact that there's a perfectionism culture in
Right.
nonprofits, very
Right.
cautious, very safe. And most marketers in for profit are going to go, let's spice things up a little bit here. Let's be a little controversial. And that's actually sometimes how you
Yes.
find
Yes.
your people, right?
We got to blow things up. We got to
Gotcha.
blow things up. People, let me tell you something. I teach a class. I teach a video advertising class at the Miami Ad School of Atlanta. And all my students are in the, like, I'd say 20 to 25-ish age range.
Okay.
When they hear that I work in nonprofit, they are so tired of this messaging. And when I show some of the things that are out there in nonprofit video, it's exasperating. You're just like, this is begging. This is
Yeah.
begging. This is desperation. This is the same message we've been hearing since the early 90s, man. Every brand is different, but generally you need to be thinking about, how can you entertain your audience? How can you educate your audience? How can you make your audience laugh? How can you make your audience cry? You
Yeah.
need to think of yourself as a more holistic entertainment brand in your content, because people don't want to just sit there and be sold to. People don't just want to sit there and hear, oh, we got this great mission and this is really important and we got to do this, or otherwise this will happen. That there's too much noise in the digital space. There's too many social problems that people are already feeling overwhelmed by.
Yeah.
You've got to reach out to people on an authentic, emotional platform to
Yeah.
build that brand. And that brand building is worth so much more over a long period of time. I think I went off the rails there
No,
a
no,
little
that's great.
bit.
No, I love it. I love it. No, this is fantastic. And we had that Impact Up event here in Toronto, and
Mhm,
one of
mhm.
our Hive, a bunch of Hive people came, which is great. It's super cool to meet people in
Yeah,
person. But one of the things that was so cool is one of the big we were talking about big problems in the space, and
yeah,
a fellow marketer who works in nonprofit is like, nonprofit marketing is wildly unsexy, right?
yeah,
Like, it's
yeah,
super unsexy, and it's a weird term. And I think we often divorce nonprofit as if it's a bar that's
yeah.
weird up here, right? And in Toronto especially, there's, I don't know if you ever heard Sick Kids Foundation.
I love those I was actually going to say those. I was like, that's a great example of people who are doing it.
Yeah, and so partly for us working in the marketing Toronto ecosystem for the last how many years, everyone uses those. Every nonprofit comes and says, that's the bar. We want to look like this. And theirs are like $3 million ads, some of them. But they're
It doesn't
converting.
have to be.
They're
They're converting, and it doesn't have to
converting.
be.
Have to
That's
be. Yeah,
yeah,
but you could add a little bit of that Ryan Reynolds pep to your marketing step without having to use Ryan Reynolds, right? That's the thing
right,
is great for sick kids. That's how they roll, but they didn't start there. But they have
no,
some great ads from 4 years ago that cost a fraction of the price without
right,
Ryan Reynolds in them. So I don't know. You have to start somewhere. Okay, so yeah, you
yes,
and I have to have our little marketing mastermind later. But
yes.
okay, so next question was how in this journey of nonprofit have you found like how does peer support work for you as a
Mm.
consultant, as someone working in the industry? What's the value of that to your work?
Peer support.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably something I haven't sought out enough, to be completely honest with you. Um, I find that I tend to personally just be a little too siloed, and the peers that I do have that work in nonprofit on the marketing and the creative side, we all seem to be like stay back. We tend to build walls, and I'm saying I maybe have done that a little bit as well. So I think peer support is actually something that that we all need to be doing more of. But really, me, I think I've built up some walls, and it's that scarcity mentality that we just talked about. So it's funny how even I'm sitting here saying, "Hey, we need to break down the scarcity mentality," and yet I know that I participate in much of it as well. That one's a little tough for me. I don't.
That's okay. Well, it's so
Yeah,
funny that
something
you
I need
say
to work
that.
on.
So funny you say that because you've been a Hive member for how long now? You've done how many chats? So in many ways, it's funny that you would say that because people give such glowing reviews after chatting with you about what you share and about your knowledge in the sector.
Yeah, yeah, and I love doing the Hive chat. Obviously, here, huge supporter of it. I think it's so needed, and that's what I love about it is it like forces you to get out there and communicate and not pull back in. I've met so many great people through the Hive chats that have really helped me build up my knowledge and also resources because we try to be in nonprofit. We try to be everything to everyone. What do you need? What do you need? And I'm up late at night trying to learn new skills and stuff because there's a limited amount of people to do these things. But I think the more we can build, be able to have in our network like niche and specialist service providers, that's going to help us grow this industry. That's going to help us break down that scarcity mentality, get better results for our clients, and also just be able to communicate about these problems more freely.
Okay, the
Yeah.
one thing we're gonna wrap this up with the fun. Daniel, people getting in touch with you, people want to learn more. Can you give us a quick blurb about what services you offer and how they can find you?
Yeah, absolutely. Best way to find me is on LinkedIn. I'm always on LinkedIn making low effort content for the masses. But the main services that I provide are creative strategy, creative development, and video production. So helping you define first figuring out what the goal is, what the marketing goal is, building creative that's designed specifically towards that to accomplish that goal, and then producing video content in a number of different ways based on where your budget is. Could be in-person shooting, could be a remote video to accomplish that. I consider I use the term like video consultant, and a little cheesy, but it's not a one size fits all kind of thing. I try to build it very hub and spoke because every nonprofit's needs are very different.
Absolutely. That's awesome. Okay, thank you so much for doing this with me and appreciate you.
Yes, you as well.
Thanks, Daniel.